Good afternoon. My name is Georgia Feiste, and we are so glad that you're all here tonight, this afternoon. Transgender Day of Remembrance is an annual observance to commemorate the lives of transgender people and those that are perceived to be transgender. The first observance took place on November 28th in 1999 in San Francisco, California, and Boston, Massachusetts. Since then, November 20th has been designated as the official day of remembrance, with vigils being held throughout the week up to that throughout the United States. In a growing environment of hate and repressive legislation in our political environment aimed at harming and erasing transgender people, there are a number of organizations throughout the UCC that are open and affirming. As one, we seek to create an oasis of peace, love, respect, and dignity. Today, we observe Transgender Day of Remembrance, holding those who passed in 2022 gently and with love in our hearts as we call out their names at the end of our time together. As we continue our mission of being a loving community within the West Valley, we feel it is important to make a concerted effort to feature transgender people sharing their stories and experiences about a variety of topics. We are grateful to have Mars and Tes here with us today to share life stories and current activities in the community. In-person conversation held with an open heart and mind deepens our understanding and love for our siblings in this journey of life and love. We are offering an opportunity to donate to this event to benefit our speakers and to Spectrum Arizona Center. You will find envelopes in your program to use for your donation, and outside the doors as you exit, you will find a receptacle to place your donation envelope as you go for refreshments and conversation. I read somewhere, I think it was on Facebook, in the last 2 weeks, that one of the ways we heal from trauma is by making connections. And that's what this is about.
There is a well-known drag queen in the country who says, if you can't love yourself, how in the name of heaven are you going to love somebody else? Let's talk about that. I love myself the way I am. There's nothing that needs to change. I'll always be the perfect me. There's nothing to rearrange. I'm beautiful. I'm capable. I'm being the best me I can. And I love myself just the way I am. And I love you just the way you are. There's nothing you need to do. When I feel the love inside myself, it's easy to love you. Behind your fears, your rage, your tears, I see your shining star, and I love you just the way you are. I love this world the way it is, 'cause I can clearly see that all the things that I judge are done by people just like me. So till the birth of peace on earth that only love can bring, I'll help it grow by loving everything. I love myself just the way I am, but still I want to grow. But change outside can only come when deep inside I know that I'm beautiful, that I'm capable, I'm being the best me I can, and I love myself just the way I am, just the way that I am. I love myself just the way I am. Just the way I am.
Our next speaker is Tes, and I had an introduction prepared, but she would like to introduce herself.
Thank you for letting me be here. And that song was beautiful. Love Me As I Am. It took me a whole lifetime to do that. Those words are so simple, but that journey was so hard. My name is Tes Juliana, is what I go by. I use the female pronouns, her and she. And I'm proud now to say, and once again, this took me like a lifetime to say that I am transgender. I grew up privileged. I was a white male, lived in a beautiful area. I didn't realize how good it was, I guess, being a male. not being discriminated in any way. But my life was not that simple. At 4 years old, I knew something was going on. But what made that so hard for 66 years, I didn't know why I had the desire to be a woman. I didn't know why I hated myself so much. Hated myself so much that I was willing to mutilate, disfigure myself. And so many of us go through this. My first day of remembrance, I'll never forget. I was in the lower south side of Philadelphia, and those around me were ones who had lost, and I saw their tears. And this is frightening. Is this the world I'm going to transition into? I began my transition November 5th, 2015. It was during the presidential primaries when we made front page because of the hatred that was out there. And I was scared. Is this what I'm going to, in the world that I'm going to be a part of? I never understood why I was like I was. Kids today, they're lucky. So my life was literally a life of hell. And when I came out, and I was ready to make this journey, and I came out only because of a moment of weakness when I emotionally broke down completely. I was determined to keep that secret for my life, but evidently I couldn't. I didn't know this journey would be so hard. I had no idea what it's like, first of all, to be transgender and then to have to take this journey. When I began my journey, I promised myself that I would write down every tear, every joy, every moment of this journey. And I did that for 4.5 years. And it's all in a book now called Just Tes, A Transgender's Journey to Womanhood. And hopefully I'll have it published next summer. But my journey, I guess I feel so privileged. It was not like a lot of my sisters that I knew that lost everything around them, family, friends. Why was I blessed? I don't know. I like to say or think that it was because Jewel, that's who I was, and still am in a way, was such a beautiful person. But everybody said to me how courageous you are. No, you do it to survive. The most incredible person was my wife. I hid this from her in our marriage for 44 years. She never knew. When I came out, she yelled, she screamed at me, how I lied to her. I knew my marriage was over, just like so many others. But we sort of hung in there. And she was willing to go through the loss and the grief of the person that she loved. That was a hard journey for her, where I was going through this journey of, my life dream. I thought it was going to be easy, but it wasn't. But still, every day I gained something. Every day she lost. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. The spouse. Today I am so proud to say that the love story of Joanne and Jules didn't really come to an end, but it blossomed into the love story of Joanne and Tes, which is so beautiful. It's so wonderful to be able to look in the mirror and smile and love myself. There are so many unfortunate ones, but I'm not. I'm blessed. My family loved me, maybe even more now than they did before. Friends stood by my side. Yeah, I would have my face thrown on Facebook, being discriminated, all that. But never did I fear for my life. Never. It's different being a woman, believe me. But I never had to fear. I dealt with people whose opinions and thoughts were different, but I didn't have to be afraid. So today is such a special day for me, because I want to remember all those who weren't as blessed. They don't have the doctors to give them the hormones they need, the doctors that care for them, the surgeons that are there. Yeah, I was blessed. But please, never forget those who gave their lives for me. Thank you.
Good morning, evening, friends. Here's your friendly announcer. I have serious news to pass on to everybody. What I'm about to say could mean the world's disaster, could change your joy and laughter to tears when I say it's that love's in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away. Going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before you've gone too far. The force of evil plans to make you its possession, and it will if we let it. Yes, everybody, we all must take precautionary measures. If love and peace you treasure, then you'll hear me when I say it's that love's in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away, right away, right away, right away. It's going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before you've gone too far, too far, too far. Love's in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away, right away, right away, right away. It's going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before we've gone too far.
Mars is the property manager for Trinity Cathedral in Phoenix, and he's here to help us develop an understanding around how we might reach out to the community with love, respect, and dignity.
As a community, transgender folks are far too often asked to tell our stories of pain about the ways that we have been hurt, about the ways that we are marginalized. And while those stories absolutely have a place, we are not asked often enough to talk about our joy. We haven't read the names yet, but I want you to keep in mind as we read the names of each of the people who have passed in this last year, that these are people who had full lives. I'm sure some of them had foibles. I'm sure they had problems. I'm sure they had their share of pain. But they also had joy. They had love. They had friends. Trust me, I was reading through some of the biographies on the people who have passed in this last year, and so many of them gave so much to their communities. So it is important for us to remember that. Similarly, I think we often focus too much on biological family. In many ways, it is very important for our biological family to be supportive of us, but we can't guarantee it. And that's why it's important for our communities to be supportive of us. It is in our supportive communities that we find our found families. So it almost feels cliche to start by talking about pronouns and names, but it is one of the most basic things that we can do to give someone respect. It is one of the most basic ways that we can say, I see you, and you really are who you say you are. More than that, on a day like today, it is extremely important because after passing, almost half of the people who were killed this past year were given the wrong name or the wrong pronouns in their obituary, by their families, or by police. And this is all too common for us. That said, there is a flip side to that. There is a simple joy in hearing your name spoken out loud for the first time, your true name. It becomes a concrete element that you are here. In many situations, it's just that little piece that makes us feel a little safer. It can also be a little bit different for pronouns, for a few reasons. First of all, I don't hear people use my pronoun a whole lot unless we're in a medium to large group setting. One-on-one, you're probably going to use my name or we're just going to be talking. And quite honestly, unless someone is very regularly misgendering me, I don't usually get told when people aren't using my pronouns. And I recognize my pronouns can be a little bit difficult. When I first came out to one of my groups of friends, I told them that the pronouns I was using were it, they, he, in that preferential order. And I was very particular about that. So while some of my friends decided that they were not comfortable using it as a pronoun for me, they started to work very hard on using they in the singular. This led to some really funny text messages. One of my people started texting me with adventures in the singular they. It was always snippets of conversation between him and his husband as they tried to figure out or forgot or remembered at the last moment that they needed to change the plural or the singular in that sentence. What I don't think he will ever know is how much joy those text messages gave me, because it showed me how hard they were working. I also only found out much later how hard the rest of my friends were working at it. I got told years into my transition that this specific friend group started having accountability buddies. They would sit together during meetings or at events so that if one of them messed up, the other one could go, "Stop it, that's not the pronoun. It, use it." And they intentionally would correct each other if they heard someone else say it. What this created for me was a space where I didn't have to put in the emotional labor. I didn't have to be on guard all the time. I didn't have to question if this was a situation where I was safe to state my pronouns. If someone misgendered me, one of my friends just went, "No," or "I think you forgot." And one of the beautiful joys in that was that I realized that not only were they trying to honor me, but they weren't asking my permission or apologizing to me when they said it. If they made a mistake, they went, "Correct that," and they just corrected themselves. No, "I'm sorry," no requesting that I can forgive them. They just said, "Not she, it, got it." And I know sometimes when a trans person has been misgendered for the millionth time that day, it starts to feel like death by a million paper cuts. Sometimes that is when folks explode. But this wasn't like that even when they misgendered me. Because they were correcting each other, it became a safe space. They took the pressure off of me, and in doing so, they took the pressure off of each other. They no longer had to worry about what I would say because they knew their friends would hold them accountable and that none of us were mad at them. It was very simple, very clear. I know one of my people would describe this as the oops out, or as the ouch oops way of doing things. When you make a mistake and you realize it, you go, "Oops." And if someone else catches it, they might go, "Ouch." And then your response is just, "Oops." Fix it, move on. It's really helpful. Interestingly, finding your name in pronouns is also its own kind of joy. And it can be its own problem. So while we've found various tools and formed small communities where we can often explore and choose what names and pronouns we want to use, it's not the same when you're not in person. Trust me, there are websites you can go to have it generate a few sentences using your name and pronouns so that you can read it. But as I said, there is a whole different joy in hearing it out loud from another person's lips. So, while you would think that our names and pronouns might be just immediately obvious to all of us, as you may notice, my pronouns haven't been invented yet. There was a reason to wear the shirt today. So while I knew from the time that I was in first grade that my name was Mars, I didn't yet know what pronouns I would use. In first grade, some of the kids started to question how they would change my name to a more masculine name from the feminine name I had at the time. And when they couldn't figure it out because it's Hungarian, I just told them, my name's Mars. That's how I knew. But it's not always that easy. Sometimes it means going to groups that you know are a safe place and saying, this week, can you please call me by Carrie? This week, can you please call me by Abby? And it might change over and over again. And that's why we need the safe space to do that. Because if we're not sure yet, think about how hard it is to ask other people to see us and really believe that this isn't a phase. This isn't something we're going to grow out of. This is us. Around that age, we did start discussing pronouns for me. I didn't fit in with the girls, I didn't fit in with the boys, and at the same time, I fit in with both. This was also the age where teachers were telling us that we could not use the singular they for a human being, that the singular they did not exist. So my friends started saying, well, you're not male or female, it. It is the pronoun we will use. And at the time, that gave me a lot of joy. That said, at some point, I started to meet people who used other pronouns I'd never heard before. So several years into my transition, some of my friends started to use the pronoun they. And I went, that's interesting. Okay, because I'm not male or female, we can maybe try this new thing out. And so I went back to that same group of friends that had worked so hard to call me the singular they and said, can we try this for a little bit? Can we call me Faye for a few weeks? And they were amazing because they responded by making a point of referring to me in my presence with my pronouns, creating situations where they could use my pronouns, where I would hear them. And I'll tell you, I went from telling people that my pronouns are it, they, he in that preferential order to telling people that my pronouns are it or they with no preferential order. Now, I think it is important to talk about the concept of preferred pronouns, especially as I've talked about preferred orders. What I often tell people is, we do not have preferred pronouns. We have pronouns. You have pronouns, we have pronouns. That's how this works. So then why did I have a preferential order? Honestly, it was so that I didn't have to have the same conversation over and over again anytime someone wanted to tell me how dehumanizing my pronoun was for them. So I said, fine, you want other options? Here are the options. They and he are your other options. If you can't handle it, don't talk to me about that. And oftentimes, that is why there is a preferential order. It's not for us, it is for you. I remember when I first told this group of friends that that was the point of the preferential order. And that same person who sent me those adventures in the singular they told me a month later how hard he was working on using the it pronoun instead, because he realized that I had made accommodations for him, that he was not honoring me in my fullness. You will find transgender people often make accommodations for the rest of society. That said, even though I had a preferential order, not everyone who uses multiple pronouns does. And so because we have put in all of this work talking about pronouns, I want to let you in on a few secrets. My first secret is that if someone has a pronoun that you don't feel comfortable using and they've offered other options, don't tell them why you're not using their preferred pronoun. Just go with it. If you really cannot handle using that pronoun, choose another option and move on. The second secret is that typically, if we have additional pronouns, we don't all use them in the same way. Some people may give you additional pronouns because they're afraid of saying what pronoun they actually want to be called. I see a lot of folks who are new or coming into their transition say stuff like, well, my pronouns are she or they, in that hesitant manner where you know that they're not quite sure that they can ask for that yet. And that's not always the reason why, though. Some people use multiple pronouns because they're comfortable with all of those pronouns. It or they, no preferential order. Use them as you'd like. And then the most tricky for me. There are those folks who would like you to use all of their pronouns. They would like you to rotate through them as you talk. You want to talk about having to think very, very clearly about who you're talking about and what you just said last. Well, I was talking with Jai, and she said that she really liked Phoenix, but he is moving to Tucson soon. So then how do we deal with all of these different ways to have multiple pronouns? That's the third secret, and it's a really simple one. You ask. Usually I have a couple of questions I ask when I encounter this situation. The first one, especially if they're very hesitant, is I say, how would you like me to use your multiple pronouns? And then before they even have a chance, I say, do you want me to pick one and go with it? Do you want me to rotate through them? Do you have a preferential order? I just lay it on the table, because by doing that, I take the emotional labor off of them, the way my friends did for me. The next question is especially true for those who seem hesitant, but also when they say, pick a pronoun and run with it. And I will respond with, does one of your pronouns bring you joy? As I said, we're not often asked to center our own joy, especially in advocating for ourselves. You would think that would be the place to center our joy, but often in advocating for ourselves, we are figuring out how far we can advocate before we have to get into the fight, before we have to get into an argument, before we stop being safe. And I have found often, when I ask, which pronoun brings you joy, my trans brethren have to take a pause, because it's not a question they've been asked. I also find often those hesitant folks who maybe said, maybe put they at the end because they're not quite sure they can stick their toe in that and ask for that. They'll often go, well, I would like it if you called me they. I get joy out of they. And so I will switch to that even though they put it as their second pronoun. Sorry, I went way beyond where my notes were, so I'm like, scroll. For many, our appearance is another place where we get to find joy. I know that kind of runs counterintuitive for some folks, but that moment when you get to look in the mirror and go, oh, that's the person I dreamed of when I was a kid. And it's not always big things. Sometimes it's the smallest things. When I was in high school, I dreamed about having a beard. When I thought, or when I was in deep thought, I would do this with my chin, with my hairless chin. And then, after a few moments, I might reach over to my friend's beard and stroke theirs so that I could think. I very thankfully had some very understanding friends in high school. Clearly, I eventually got my wish, but that wasn't always a given. As a non-binary person, I wondered for a long time what transitioning would look like for me. I'm not male, I'm not female. I sit somewhere in between, but also neither. When people ask me about my gender, I often describe, I just sort of kind of don't feel like a man, but I just really don't feel like a woman. I don't know what that is, but it's neither. And that is as confusing for me as it is for you, I promise. But that also led to the question of, what do I want to look like? And there is a joy in being transgender. And that is a joy that I hope everyone gets to experience at some point, is realizing I get to look the way I want to look. I get to present as whoever I am today. Today, I am in a skirt and heels, and I'll tell you, it's not what I wore to church today. I usually go to work in a button-up shirt and slacks and the most comfortable pair of shoes I can find. Nurse's shoes, actually. And that is a joy that you get to have as well. As part of that, one of my most treasured memories of socially transitioning was I talked to one of my friends. I was ready to start presenting a little more masculine. And I said, can you help me? And so we went to a store and picked out 5 or 6 shirts. And we got to the dressing room, and the dressing room splits women, men, and we have to talk to the attendant, and my friend handles it all for me. He was wonderful. He goes, this is how many shirts we have, this is what we're doing. And they went, okay, and then before they could say a word about what side we were going to, he grabbed my hand and pulled me into the men's side. And that attendant didn't even have a moment to ask questions, just, yep, that's what we're doing today. What I found out after this event is I got to give him something that he never expected he would enjoy. So we went into that men's side, and I tried on shirts, and I showed them off to him, and he taught me amazing things like how to tuck my shirt so that my breasts weren't as obvious. But what I didn't realize he was getting was something that a lot of men don't get. He had never gotten to go into the dressing room with a friend. He had never gotten to have someone say, how does this look on me? What does this look like? More than that, I got to surprise him because I had picked out a shirt that I wanted to see him in, too. And he had never had someone in his adult life say, try this on. Come back out, let me see it. Because he hadn't gotten to do group shopping. And it was something I had never considered as a feminine thing. But it was something him, as a masculine guy, had never been offered the opportunity to do. It's pretty amazing because as we explore our own gender and we explore the ways our gender relates to our community and the expectations put on us, we also get to highlight those places for other folks. We get to show them what else they could explore. We get to show them that there is no reason to be afraid of exploring those things. You know, I know a lot of trans folks who, as they start their transition, they go, oh, I mean, but I really actually do enjoy quilting, and I enjoy sewing, and I don't know, if I transition into a man, I'm not really allowed to do that anymore. But why not? Why can't you? What's stopping you? I have male friends who crochet. Why can't you quilt? And so it becomes an exploration of who we really are, not just how we present, but an understanding of the ways our communities stigmatize or encourage us to explore outside of the normally accepted boundaries. Too far. That gives us a chance to really find our authentic selves and to encourage you to find your authentic selves. Because we can't actually do this transition without having to face what makes you see me as a man or as a woman. For the longest time, I thought that people saw me as a woman because of my chest. So I bound my chest up and tried to present more masculine, and everyone went, no, we still see it. I went, well, if it's not that, what is it? I'll tell you, I actually only started passing when the beard grew in. But when the beard grew in, I learned something about that. Part of why I didn't pass is because I am flaming. When I was a woman, everyone just went, well, obviously you're straight because you are extremely effeminate. And when people saw me as a man, they went, oh, you are not straight. And then I got to have a choice. How do I want to be seen? Do I want to change my mannerisms? Do I want to change my voice? Do I want to, as we would say, be able to go under the radar? I made the choice that I don't. And there is a real joy in that, in realizing that I have those options, but I am not required to take those options. I also found a kind of joy in my spiritual life that I had not had before. I grew up in a household with a mother who desperately wanted me to become the village wise woman. And I had to really face what that meant when I decided to transition. It was a little bit harder because at that point my mom had actually passed away. She passed about a year before I came out a second time. I tried to come out to her as a kid. I told her I didn't identify as male or female. She responded with, I feel that way sometimes. And I will never know if we were on the same page or not. But as I grappled with what did it mean to be a village-wise woman, I understood that it meant the same things I was already doing. I was creating a safe space for those who didn't have another space to come and sit with me. I was able to talk to people about their own spiritual journeys and their own fears and the ways that they related to God. God became greater than his he, him pronouns. And I will tell you, I saw an article on, I think it was Reddit not long ago of someone complaining about people not using God's he, him pronouns. I was like, well, you're getting closer. Good to know. If you're going to insist that he has pronouns, then at least you can accept I do too. But God became so much more to me at that point. I was able to see how my own transition and my own liminal spaces fit in with my concepts of deity. This actually also led me to a further understanding, and that is why all trans folks get to have these joys of being our authentic selves, these joys about exploring what this means and how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to society. We don't offer that opportunity often for cisgender folks. We often, as a society, say, well, if you're a man, you do this, and if you're a woman, you do this. If you're a man, you look this way, and if you're a woman, you look this way. And I'm really happy when people want to embrace that and it brings them joy. But if it doesn't bring you joy, it's okay to color outside the lines. And that's not something we offer very often. So yes, a lot of this has been about transgender joy, and a lot of this has been about our experiences. There is a place for your experiences as well, even if you don't identify as transgender. See, I want everyone to explore what transgender, or what gender means to them. I want everyone to explore what activities they enjoy, what presentations they like. I will tell you, and this has been a journey of a lifetime, because I remember being a kid and having people talk about boys with long hair, and they meant hair to here. And I was like, but if my hair is there, you tell me it's short. Why? And I'll tell you also, as someone who's neurodivergent, most of those explanations still make no sense to me. It's long or it's short. Gender doesn't play a role in this for me. But you have options for your presentation. You can choose to have earrings or not. You can choose that you want to wear makeup today or not. I don't care what your gender is, you can choose those things anytime. And the point of that exploration doesn't have to be finding a new name and pronouns. While I use those as the most easy examples of how to create a safe space, that's because they are literally on the ground level of the base level that we are expecting of you, please. And I know most of you know that. That's why I feel comfortable saying that. And if you don't find you have a new name and pronouns when you explore your gender, that's kind of expected. If you're cisgender, that's okay. Most of y'all are. But what I would hope is that instead of that, you find your own joy. And that you find the grace to be able to allow others a wider and deeper expression of who they are. In addition, for it being healthy for us each to explore these things, it also normalizes that exploration for those of us for whom it's most necessary. I have a chapter member at my church who he paints his own nails. And they absolutely look like home-painted nails, but they make him so happy. And that happiness and that action make it so easy for me to feel comfortable in his presence. He doesn't do it for me. He does it for him. He doesn't do it for any of the other trans people at our church. It really is a personal thing for him. And I know he takes joy when he gets to sit down and paint them slowly. But it also means that when I see that, if I didn't know him already, I now know that that church is a safe place for me to show up like this. Again, I only didn't because I was working today. Before I worked at the church, I actually used to show up all the time in dresses and other things, partially just to see how safe I really was in that community. But those are some of the simple ways that we can find our own joy and that we can allow others to find their joy. On a day like today, where we remember those who have passed, there will be sorrow, and it is hard, and it will sit heavy in our hearts. But I hope that you also allow joy in. Thank you.
We will be reading the documented names, trusting you will acknowledge that there are hundreds more that are undocumented. A Black trans woman, 25 years old, was killed in Miami, Florida on October 1st, 2022. We remember Tiffany Banks.
A Black trans man, 33 years old, was killed in Jacksonville, Florida on September 21st, 2022. We remember Simanji Billingsley.
A Black trans woman, 35 years old, was killed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on August 29th, 2022. We remember Maya Regina Allen.
A Black trans woman, 33 years old, was killed in Detroit, Michigan on August 27, 2022. We remember Dee Dee Reeks.
A Two-Spirit Lakota, 30 years old, was killed in Rapid City, South Dakota on August 21st, 2022. We remember A.C. Morrison.
A trans man, 26 years old, was killed in McLean, Virginia on July 7th, 2022. We remember Aaron Lunch.
A Black trans woman, 29 years old, was killed in Kansas City, Missouri on July 24th, 2022. We remember Kanji Reed.
A transgender Latina, 39 years old, was killed in Houston, Texas on July 29th, 2022. We remember Marcela Castro.
A Black trans woman, 28 years old, was killed in Detroit, Michigan on July 25th, 2022. We remember Hayden Diaz.
A trans woman, 48 years old, experiencing homelessness, was killed in Los Angeles, California on July 5th, 2022. We remember Cherry Bush.
A Black trans woman, 26 years old, was killed in Augusta, Georgia on July 20th, 2022. We remember Keisha Chanel Getter.
A Black trans woman, 30 years old, was killed in Chicago, Illinois on July 11th, 2022. We remember Marticia Richmond.
A Black trans woman was killed in Cordova, Tennessee on June 29th, 2022. We remember Kitty Monroe.
A black trans woman, 27 years old, was killed in Gulfport, Michigan on June 21st, 2022. We remember Charmaine Giselle Marie.
A black trans woman, 28 years old, was killed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on June 15th, 2022. We remember Brazil Johnson.
A black trans woman, 30 years old, was killed in Albany, New York on May 31st, 2022. We remember Shanalika Yela Dior Hemingway.
A trans woman, 47 years old, was killed in Malvern, Pennsylvania on May 19th, 2022. We remember Maddie Hoffman.
A transgender Latina, 45 years old, was killed in Zebulon, North Carolina on May 13th, 2023. We remember Sasha Mason.
A black trans woman, 50 years old, was killed in Opa-locka, Florida on May 14th, 2022. We remember Nedra.
A white trans man, 24 years old, was killed in Township, Michigan on May 8th, 2022. We remember Ray Muscat.
A trans woman, 29 years old, was killed in Morristown, Vermont on April 12th, 2022. We remember Fern Feather.
A black trans girl, 17 years old, was killed in Hampton, Virginia on April 2nd, 2022. We remember Adriana Mitchell.
A black trans woman, 25 years old, was killed in Chester, Pennsylvania on April 1st, 2022. We remember Mia Love Parker.
A black transgender woman, 24 years old, was killed in Jackson, Michigan on March 26th, 2022. We remember Kenyatta Keisha Webster.
An Asian American trans woman, 19 years old, was killed in Georgia on March 19th, 2022. We remember Catherine Katie Newhouse.
A black transgender woman, 33 years old, was killed in Chicago, Illinois on March 18th, 2022. We remember Tatiana LaBelle.
A black transgender Latina, 29 years old, was killed in Houston, Texas on February 26, 2022. We remember Paloma Vasquez.
A white trans man, 21 years old, was killed in Newcastle, Delaware on February 9th, 2022. We remember Matthew Angelo Spampinato.
A black transgender woman, 25 years old, was killed in Highland Park, Michigan on February the 12th, 2022. We remember Naomi Skinner.
A trans Latina, 21 years old, was killed in Lubbock, Texas on February 13th, 2022. We remember Cypress Ramos.
A Black trans woman, 24 years old, was killed in Jacksonville, Florida on January 3rd, 2022. We remember Dual Princess.
A Black transgender woman, 24 years old, was found dead in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in January of 2022. We remember Amara Lay.
A white transgender man, 28 years old, was killed in Colorado Springs, Colorado on November 19th, 2022. We remember Daniel David Aston.
A white transgender woman, 40 years old, was killed in Colorado Springs, Colorado on November 19th, 2022. We remember Kelly Loving.
When grief is squeezing air from your lungs, take a breath deeply for yourself and one for those who can no longer. Take their breath too. Fill your lungs, cell by cell, with precious, life-giving air, and feel it feed your brain, your heart, your body. Feel the life. When the grief is squeezing you out, breathe in and take another miraculous breath for those who can no longer. It will keep you alive, and they will feel it.
Tes, Mars, thank you for sharing your story, for inspiring us to live to our story. We have an opportunity to really connect with each other. I trust that you will take that opportunity as we join each other in the narthex and connect and share stories of inspiration. Amen. Amen.